let's talk about the last session that we had. Remember the last session? A terrific guest speaker from Tell me what you thought about that session on dressing for success. What did you like about it?
They talked to us about first impressions of work. Yeah, like know how to show yourself to someone who's
Right. First impression is very important, and you're always being evaluated. Two great points. What else? Sugarcoat the information and showed you like it was. I mean, that's the reality. And so she'll, it's like I mentioned before, you'll go on an interview, you'll go to a job site. You may interview with 3 or 4 different people. After you're gone, they'll convene in a room and they'll have their notes. They'll go around the table and talk about how each person felt. So it's a team evaluation process many times. Sometimes it's just one-on-one. Many times it's a team evaluation process. So I'm seeing Mr. Sigley over there and Ms. Kayla in the area. You recently went on an interview, correct? And can you tell us a little bit about that interview? That was your first formal job interview? Pretty nerve-wracking. Can't hear me. Okay, man, I was going to ask you to say. Oh, man, this is not as nerve-wracking as it
Okay, when I went to Goodyear, I expected an interview, and when I got there, basically they told me that I had 4 back-to-back interviews instead of 1, so it was pretty nerve-wracking. And it's something you have to prepare yourself for. You can't just go in and wing it. It doesn't work that way, because you'll blow your interview. I would just suggest that you prepare for your interview, research it, like up on the company that you're going in for an interview for, and just go from there, get comfortable talking to people.
Right, I worked with Matt a bit and Kayla, and we talked about some of the kinds of questions that would be asked. Research on the company is very important. You can't believe how many people walk into interviews and they have done absolutely zero research on the company. And at the end of the interview, the interviewer is in this session and it's like this person didn't even know what job they were interviewing for, what company. That's not a good way to approach it. So, same way you study for a test, an exam, same way you would study for SATs, any of that, that's what you have to do if you want the job. It's a competition. I mean, there's millions of people looking for jobs. And so, you have to set yourself apart. What was Kayla? What did you think, Miss Kayla?
It seems like it's going to be stressful, but once I actually got there, you just had to stay calm, cool, and collected, and it wasn't that bad. I would say definitely research the company, and then while you're in the interview, bring up certain tidbits to show them that you interviewed or research the company. And then when you're done, email them or send them thank you notes for taking the time to interview you and make them personalized to each interviewer.
Yes, good information. Very important. once again, you can't imagine how many people interview, they never send a little note. People were waiting a week to decide, and it's like, well, they didn't even, thank me. They didn't ask for the job. They didn't do any research. It's like they didn't care about it. So all of those things factor in. It's not just, here, I want to fill out this application, and you expect to get a job. That's just not going to happen. So, getting back to the dress for success. Anything else? Anybody was, she talked about tattoos, body piercings, everything, right? The whole gamut. Facial hair. Those are decisions you have to make. If you have facial hair, you walk into an interview and somebody doesn't like it, you'll never know until it's over. Until it's too late. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it, but obviously if you go in like Matt's nice and trimmed up, right? And I'm not trying to embarrass you now, Matt, but Matt goes into an interview like that, he looks very professional. Okay? A week before, when Matt said to me, is the beard okay? He didn't look very professional. Right, Matt? All right, he had to trim it up a little bit. But that's what we're talking about. We talked about the size of earrings, things like that. There's kind of certain rules and regs that you have to follow. The other option is, you don't get the jobs, and it's really not what you want, right? Okay, great. So, today, we have a very important session. And I want to thank Mrs. Brunner, she's over there, for helping design the session. Also, Mr. LaRocca, thank you, Rich, for your contributions. I think you know what I think about technology and engineering, both career paths. Extremely important. Why? Well, not only can't we survive as a society without both of them today's day and age, obviously engineering and obviously technology, but that's where the jobs are now. Those are two career paths that are plentiful with jobs, both in Ohio and on a national basis. So that makes them, in my mind, very important career paths. Now, you may not be majoring in either one of them. But again, like Mr. Brunner said, and I think it's clear, our program is 2 years old. Some of you have been sitting in this room for 2 years, Jack, Mackenzie, as I'm looking around, Kayla, Nejla. You've seen 15 to 20 presenters tell you, my first, second, third career choice is not what I wound up doing. If that's a fact, with all of those presenters, all the way up to CEOs of companies, I stood up there and said, first choice is not always what you're going to do. Your second choice is not always going to be there. Matter of fact, sometimes it's the third and fourth. Or, I went and had a job experience that changed my mind. And I'll give you a person who is right from your school, that you all know, that is extremely talented, a very bright individual. Her name is Hannah Montgomery. Who went to school at Baldwin-Wallace for chemistry. Okay, that's what she chose this time last year as a senior. She interned at Timken in engineering and is now leaving Baldwin-Wallace. I don't know which school, but she went to Ohio State, to Case Western, and to Akron to investigate their engineering programs. She's hired back a year or two for an internship in engineering, and she's switching schools. That's a real life example 12 months ago. And it's one of your peers. So I would, if I were you, and if I were in your position, I would be listening to every single word that these presenters have for you. Taking notes, because you never know. The other thing is we talked about safety nets. We talked about having a plan B. We talked about you are very talented individuals that are going into college with enough credits to probably start minimally your sophomore year. Some of you, your junior year, if you have 2 associate's degrees, and some of you do. You have some room to take a minor. You have some time. You finished a lot of the elective work. All your credits, thanks to the work Mr. Bruder does and the teachers, you have enough time to look at having a safety net or a plan B. Something like IT is an unbelievably valuable safety net for you. Trust me. There isn't a company that I know of that I've been associated with. Their IT department hasn't exploded in the last 10 years. Exploded. You know, IT was, somebody who ran around and fixed fax machines and, did a little bit of that. Now you can't run a company. You can't do receivables. You can't run a finance department without it. You can't do logistics, run your trucks. You can't move inventory without it. It is invaluable. So listen up. We have 2 wonderful speakers for you, and I hope you enjoy the session. So, Rich, do you want to introduce our first speaker?
Sure, no, thanks.
Thank you.
I don't think I need the mic either, but I want to start off by saying how important it is for networking. I was able to get Tom here because I work on an engineering board with Tom's mom, and I just happened to talk about your kids a lot. And she was saying, how is it going? And I said, boy, I'm really struggling. I need a computer engineer to come in. Some of the students are interested in computer engineering. So she said, my son's a computer engineer. I said, really? You think he'd want to talk in front of the kids and talk about his career? And she says, well, let me ask. She had asked Tom, and Tom emailed me and said he'd be glad to come and help. So, it's really exciting, and I want to reiterate what Tom had said. Computers are not just for engineering. I've got 2 daughters that graduated in business. You're going to be sitting in front of a computer screen. And the IT people and computer engineers are giving you all the information that you're going to need on your job and make your job a lot easier. So I don't care what company you're going into, listen to this presentation. It's going to be exciting. Tom's all excited about his career and he's come here to share it with us. And I'm really pleased to present Tom Bresson.
Hi guys, thank you. So one thing I want to say real quick before we get started, based on what Tom and Rick just said, is number one, engineering is a great springboard into tons of fields. You may not even end up doing engineering work, but it's a really good field to start with as far as career-wise, because it opens all kinds of doors to all kinds of jobs. And number two, what Rich touched on was networking. Networking is huge. I mean, it's such a big deal. It's more about who you know than anything else as far as getting a job, in my opinion. I've got friends that got jobs just by knowing other people, so it's super important. So at any rate, my name is Tom Bresson. I'm a computer engineer. I'm going to talk to you guys today about some general information about computer engineering and how it applies to aerospace. So, who am I? Tom Bresson. I graduated from the University of Akron in 2009. I currently work at Meggitt Aircraft Braking Systems, and I started in 2009. So roughly, it took me about 5 months to find a job. The economy wasn't so good in 2009. and I'm the lead engineer on the C-Series electric brake system. So, who am I personally? I was born and raised in Ohio. I'm 30 years old. I've been playing video games for 24 years. I love electronics and building things. I love to travel. I have an orange cat. And I'm getting married in June. So that's me. Thanks. And I want to tell you guys, this is my first time really presenting this. I put this together in like 2 or 3 days. So bear with me. It might get a little rough towards the middle, but and there's a lot of information in here. I try to keep it like relatively high level, so nothing's too detailed or dry. But so at any rate, I kind of just a general question, and maybe just by a show of hands, does anybody kind of have an idea of what a computer engineer is, as far as what they do, what they study, etc.? Okay, so just a couple people. This is really cool. And a lot of people don't know what computer engineers do, and actually kind of the assumption usually is computer engineers are like the equivalent of the IT guy or whatever, and that's totally not like even close to what computer engineers are. They can be, but that's not typically what they do. At any rate, as far as what Wikipedia says about computer engineering is a discipline that integrates several fields of electrical engineering and computer science required to develop computer hardware and software. So a lot of the things that computer engineers do, they work in a lot of different industries. And then here's some of the things they could actually work on. So a computer engineer could be involved in large software projects, operating system development, compiler design, firmware, etc. Those are really large software packages typically. They could be involved in hardware design, very large scale integration, so like making microprocessors and things like that, or electronics and embedded systems. Or they could be developing software for microcontrollers, so a little bit more to that embedded systems, but more really software driven than hardware driven. And I guess kind of to touch on my point a little bit ago, we don't fix computers as an occupation. You can, but that's not really what you go to school for. And actually, in my case, I actually work with microcontrollers a lot, so I develop software for embedded systems. So what is computer engineering? Computer engineers have to understand how software and hardware interact with each other at a really low level. This is kind of like the core of computer engineering. So electrical engineers are really hardware driven, software engineers are really software driven, computer engineers kind of bridge that gap of like basically, interfacing between the hardware and software. They have to understand how to be able to optimize whatever software they're writing for performance and memory based on the target application. So if you're writing code for, let's say, a microwave or I don't know, like a car or something, those are two very different applications. So you don't want to write, something that's going on a vehicle much more efficiently or more protected than something like a microwave where, there may not be as many side effects if something goes wrong. It may just stop working or something. At the very least, you have to understand basic circuit analysis. That's actually, some computer engineering schools, I know Cincinnati specifically doesn't really teach that so much. They don't emphasize that. They go more into software, but I think as a computer engineer, you really have to at least be able to kind of analyze circuits and understand them. Typically, I think kind of back to the core of what computer engineers do, they solve problems with digital hardware and software. That's really what we do. And typically you specialize in a specific area of industry, and there's tons of them out there. So I guess to reiterate again, computer engineers basically, at the very core, understand how software and hardware interact. So, kind of just by a show of hands, maybe, how many of you guys have a smartphone? Awesome. I thought I was going to have to ask how many just have a cell phone, but you guys have lots of smartphones. So, one of the things that a computer engineer does would be something like operating system development for something like a smartphone, like an Android phone or an Apple phone. These operating systems have to be really fast, they have to be really efficient, battery, memory, etc. And that's something that computer engineers can really excel at. How many of you guys have Xbox, PlayStation, PC, play games on, etc.? Okay. So another thing computer engineers do is basically we would design software that interacts with the hardware at a really low level so that those computer platforms or gaming systems or whatever can be really fast and really efficient, and they can use lower cost parts and get lots of performance out of them. So that's another really high level thing that a computer engineer would do. And as far as I guess to stretch on that a little bit, it's really the understanding how critical it is for the development of these embedded platforms for performance. So, and there's a lot of applications for this kind of stuff across all industries as far as embedded software and low-level software. So, kind of to go back into some of the stuff that maybe a software section or component of computer engineering would do, one of the things they do is processing, which involves image, speech, and signal processing. It's something like, speech processing would be when you talk, into Siri and, text comes back, basically. That's, speech processing. Or signal processing, your cell phone does signal processing all the time. As you walk outdoors and it changes towers, there's all kinds of signal processing going on there. And that's something a computer engineer would be involved in. Cryptography is another really big field. And with all the different pieces and bits and bytes and data that's out there today, computer engineers are looking for better ways to secure it, make sure that it's quick, easy, transparent, so that it never gets in the way, but it's still secure when it's traveling around the world or whatever. Networking, mobile computing is another field. Computer engineers, help try to build these networks of either cell towers or hardware that connects to different things, or routers, or anything like that. That's something a computer engineer would do. And then robotics and automation is another really big field. They would do things like write the software and firmware that would control robots as far as automation, production lines, etc. So, and again, these are just a few of the very broad sections of industry that kind of encapsulate this stuff. So, okay, so here's another thing that computer engineers can do, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because I'm not involved in this industry, but it is something that if you were really interested in it, you could do. Microprocessor design. A lot of different companies, AMD, Intel, ARM, etc., they design microprocessor architectures, and it just comes down to, how many of X you put in processor, how power efficient can we make it, how cheap can we make it, etc. And that's something the computer engineer would do. There's also application-specific integrated circuits, which are basically lower-cost versions of processors that do like a specific thing, like decode video, audio, etc. Decryption, encryption, things like that. And that's another thing the computer engineer would do, is help design those circuits. And then processor architecture design, so real high level design of like, okay, these processors will follow these specifications, and then they can live in this family or whatever. But they would be involved in designing and implementing those architectures. So another really big field, and I'd probably say, at least from what I can see, the biggest field for where computer engineers really get involved is embedded development, and that's actually the field that I'm in. So one thing that they do is consumer electronics. There's literally tons of products that use microcontrollers for functional purposes. And I just named a few there: digital cameras, TV, microwaves, washing machines, etc. I mean, there's anything that you can think of that you push a button and something happens, there's probably a microcontroller involved. There's industrial. So industrial microcontrollers can be found in things like sewage treatment plants, or power plants, or robotic automation, or assembly lines, just all kinds of places. And then where I'm most familiar is control systems in aerospace, and additionally automotive and locomotive. So, and I guess to give you kind of an idea of how many control systems are in like your average car today, an average low-end car may have like 30-ish control systems. A high-end car would have maybe 100. I'm not exactly sure on the number in an aircraft, but I think it's kind of on the order of 200 to 300 control systems. So, and each one of those control systems, or at least a very large number of them, are all provided by different suppliers. So there's tons of stuff that goes in an aircraft. So here's a picture of the C-Series aircraft, the one that actually has our electric brakes on it. And I've kind of outlined some areas that we'll go through just real briefly that I'm going to show you where in the aircraft, just kind of as a, this is where it's at. But so the first one here is in the mid-avionics bay. There's probably, I don't know, a dozen, 2 dozen control systems at least in there, maybe even more. And then the next one is in the cockpit. And there's tons of control systems up in there, along with the forward equipment bay. And then the engines as well. So there's lots of control systems scattered throughout. And I guess it's kind of an anecdote just as far as aerospace goes. Really, the key with aerospace, and probably why there's so many control systems, is the fact that there's so much redundancy. So if a control system is critical to flight or safety, if it fails, a second or third or fourth controller may be available or will be available to take over in case the first one has failed. And like I've kind of been saying, there's really a lot of need for computer engineers here in aerospace development because there's just so many control systems. All right, so how does computer engineering apply to aerospace? So control systems on aircraft perform relatively simple to moderately complex tasks. They really don't do that much. They monitor for function, they monitor for failure, and that's about it. So as far as the tasks that's required, they don't really need that much computing power or code, not like your desktop or laptop or whatever. So, which is good because that allows microcontrollers to be used for these control systems. Microcontrollers are basically everything's special purpose. So all the software that's written, so it allows them to perform functions quickly. The microcontrollers are systems on chips, so everything's kind of contained inside of them, which is good because in aerospace everything's about saving weight. Every pound that you can take out of your box, or even to the ounce sometimes, the airplane can be more efficient. The customer gets really happy about that, so that's a big deal. And then because everything's inside the microcontroller and it's not all segmented like what you would in your desktop or your laptop, or you have the RAM, you have the hard drive and everything else, everything's kind of all in the same place. It allows a little bit higher, or a lot higher actually, reliability for the hardware. So, and software basically has to be designed keeping in mind the fact that performance and memory optimization are key. You want these things to be stable, reliable, and operational all the time. They get powered up for days and days on end. Kind of a little anecdote. I don't know if you guys read the news too much, but Boeing actually, the FAA just issued a statement saying that Boeing had to cycle their aircraft power every 100 or I think it's 45 days or something, because after 160 days, their generator control units could experience an overflow and actually shut down simultaneously. So that's something that probably should have been caught in testing, but you know, it's just kind of the way things go. So, okay, so how does this all get kind of started? Basically, a customer, the airframer, defines a set of requirements for the system. System requirements are derived from the customer requirements, software requirements derived from the system requirements, and then eventually we finally get to the code. So it's a top-down process. It's not a whole lot more involved than that, I guess, at a real high level. There's tons and tons and tons of details, but you guys aren't even interested in that, so I'm not going to talk about it. There's lots of checks and balances, though, as far as making sure that from customer requirements all the way down to code, that everything kind of meets the specifications that was originally asked for. That way you don't get to the very end of the process, because aerospace is just such a lengthy process of testing and this rigorous testing and checking and everything, that you don't want to get to the end and say, oops, we screwed up, we didn't meet what we were supposed to do. So, and there's many, many, many standards to follow. So as far as standards, usually governing bodies accept these standards. Are written by some group, I forget the name, but the FAA or EASA or whoever, whatever agency you're talking about, basically has you follow these standards, and then they determine that the product is flight worthy by the fact that you can prove that you followed the standards. So defining and designing the hardware. Based on the architecture of the system, an appropriate microcontroller is chosen to support the necessary functions, basically. So you basically have to know what the kind of functionality you want, and then you can pick what you need, different microcontrollers, FPGAs, peripherals, whatever you need to kind of design the system. And that all kind of comes from the system architecture layout. And then electrical engineers will design schematics for the line replaceable unit, and then basically a prototype is developed and software development started from there, and that's kind of where my job takes over. So the software is written in C or Ada for the most part. There's a lot of different tools that help with development to make sure that the coding is not errant. You don't have loops that execute forever or whatever. Software is comprised of lots and lots and lots of different functions, but they're very simple. You know, this, if this, then do this, or something like that. I mean, it's not complicated. But the complexity, unfortunately, becomes an issue when you have so many of these things and they all interact with each other, and then you have one giant structure or function at the end. So, software development cycles for aerospace are typically 2 to 6 months. That's really long in industry. If you're talking about something like, I don't know, an app or something like that, you know, an app, probably development cycle is significantly shorter than that, because you don't have the time or luxury to wait for 6 months to get your stuff out on the market. Scheduling an organization is really challenging, unfortunately, because of the schedule that's driven by the customer. And it's really difficult because of the fact that there's so many components that are supplied by so many different suppliers, and the customer's trying to control all that, and it becomes a real nightmare when you're the last guy to put his stamp on it to say, yeah, go do it, you know, go fly, guys. And then that becomes a very big issue. But at any rate, it's very challenging. So here's just a couple of screenshots that basically show you kind of the tools that we use. We use a tool called SCADE, which is Safety Critical Application Development Environment. It just kind of helps you develop code in a way where it's not going to have, you know, unbounded conditions or overflows or whatever. So, and then another tool we use is MATLAB Simulink, which houses a lot of our algorithm control. So as far as testing software, we test our software by the standard DO-178B, which again means nothing to you guys, but that's fine. just know that it's kind of a document that specifies how software needs to be tested in order to be considered flight-worthy. And software tests are basically derived from the software requirements. So you take that set of software requirements, you derive all your test cases, and then you go and test it. And audits are done on a regular basis by the customer and the authorities. So we may have somebody from the Federal Aviation Administration come in along with the customer, and they'll go through an audit called an SOI, or Stage of Involvement Audit, where they check and make sure that everything that we did or we said we did is done properly. That way, when we're finished, we can put the software on the airplane, and then test pilots can jump in the aircraft and go fly. So as far as the difference, just kind of like a little mini summary of how I feel aerospace is different from commercial. And it can vary. Commercial is super wide, broad topic, but I think in general it kind of follows this trend. From start to finish, the process in aerospace is a lot longer. You have to derive everything from a very large set of requirements. Everything is tested very thoroughly. You don't get a lot of time to kind of prototype or play around. You really just have to, get to it, get it done, and get it done as quickly as possible. And on the other side, commercial market, really the time to get to the product to market is a lot faster. So the product development cycle for aerospace can last many years. So I think this is year 9 or 10 we're working on C-Series, and it will probably be certified this year, so they can finally start selling it to airlines. But in the actual commercial space, you don't see a 10-year development cycle typically on a product. There's many standards to follow in aerospace. There's ones for system, there's ones for hardware, there's ones for software, and all kinds of testing that's involved. And what I went over today was so brief as far as standards, but I guess maybe it helps you understand a little bit as far as what's involved. And then as far as on the commercial side, there's still Q&A, there's still, or QA rather, there's still development and testing, etc., but it's just not, I don't think it's quite as rigorously controlled. So, and then again, kind of back to the whole aerospace thing, we're required to use mil-spec parts, which is military specification. So they're very expensive. We have to buy them in large quantities because typically by the time 10 years down the road, the commercial industry's moved on. They've produced a different processor, and ours is out of availability, so, which is really unfortunate. Whereas commercial parts are a lot cheaper and definitely more available. So I guess kind of in summary, there's a lot of opportunity for computer engineers in aerospace. And there's really stringent requirements for developing, testing, and producing software. It can be a little overbearing sometimes, since engineers kind of have their way of doing things. They want to do it their way or whatever. But once you kind of give in to the fact that there's a real rigorous structure to how things have to be done, it's fine. Scheduling deadlines by the customer are sometimes very frustrating. So we use model-based development tools, which actually was a little bit of a shock to me because everything I had kind of done was in C or C++ or Java or whatever, and like when I got to aerospace, it's like, well, nothing's done at that level. Everything's done, up at a model level, and it's a little bit of a shock, but you can definitely adjust to it, that's for sure. And lots of time pushing paper, and I think this actually is kind of in aerospace, automotive, etc. All these industries that are involved with testing and standards and government agencies, etc. There's lots and lots of documentation that has to be released and reviewed every time there's software release. So, and the other thing is, it can be really fast-paced and stressful, but it can also be really rewarding. I've been able to see the aircraft from the time it was just a fuselage and some piece parts, to the time, I've seen videos of it flying around. I remember the first flight, that was really cool. I saw it up close like a month ago. There were 3 of them in a giant hangar. It was really awesome. So it can be really stressful, but I think, at least from my perspective as an engineer, when I get to see something that I made, like a little tiny part of, and it's part of this huge thing. It's just so rewarding for me. So, and here's kind of just summary about computer engineering in general. Computing is basically a part of everything we do. Cell phones, games, ATMs, whatever. I mean, look around you. There's tons of stuff that runs on software, hardware, everything. You get to play with some really cool electronics and software. And depending on what industry you're in, you may get to do different things. Thinking critically and solving problems can be really challenging and rewarding. And I imagine a lot of you guys that are interested in STEM things probably already know that. So, I mean, I absolutely encourage that. It's really awesome that as an engineer, I guess I can't even fathom why somebody wouldn't think that like solving problems is like the most awesome thing ever, but I guess, there are people that don't think that way. As I kind of touched on earlier, basically engineering, I think in general, the skills are applicable to so many different industries. So even if you just use it as a springboard to get into either management or some other industry, sales, there's sales engineers out there. I mean, there's tons of stuff that you can do. So it's a really, really good springboard. Tons of career opportunities, lots with hands-on work. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, that's absolutely a good field to be in. And it has a pretty good expected starting salary, so along with all the other engineering disciplines. So if that's something that's interesting to you, then go for it. I guess that's the end. So if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer. Ken?
Yeah, for those that are interested in engineering, what programming language would you suggest that they go ahead and investigate or look at, or any books or anything like that with programming languages?
I guess my kind of view is anything that's object-oriented is going to be a good language to start with, because once you kind of get over the barrier of the fact that it's a really different way of thinking, it's a really good skill to have. C and microcontrollers, like Arduino stuff, anything like that is a really cool place to start for embedded. Even things like Perl, Python, Ruby on Rails, whatever. I mean, there's so many different languages out there as far as what you can learn. And it's as simple as literally downloading either a runtime engine or a compiler or whatever and just start coding. I mean, just look up the API and do it. So.
Are there any suggested websites or anything that you would have us go to look up information?
I guess as far as it's such a broad thing. I mean, if you were interested in doing apps, I'd say like if you have an Android phone, go look at Google's API. If you're interested in Apple stuff, go look at their API. If you're interested in writing, web apps, go look at just Google like Java or JavaScript or whatever. It's just so broad. I guess I don't really have a good kind of like go to like here's how you should learn how to program or anything like that, because the industry is just so broad. But
it's just whatever you pick to practice in?
Yeah, kind of. I guess if you, let's say for example, you want to make a weather station or something. So let's say it's hot outside and you want to blink a little LED, red for hot, blue for cold or something. Something like that. You basically have to kind of figure out what your platform is. So you could use a Raspberry Pi, you could use a Arduino, you could use a whole bunch of different hardware, and then you kind of focus in on what they do. So like Raspberry Pi runs Linux, and it runs probably you do that in a script or something, or C. But then an Arduino runs C. You compile it for that microcontroller. But yeah, it's just so I don't know. I guess I've never really thought about the fact that. I'm sure there's robotics clubs and stuff that maybe that's a good springboard into that kind of stuff, but at any rate.
And I only ask that because we're kind of limited here. We know some schools in the surrounding area do have C++. I did Fortran way back in the day, Pascal and Basic. So. But anyway, I was just wondering if there's something, since we're limited here, that a person is really interested in investigating take on their own?
I guess my only thought there is, if you're really interested in it and you really just wanted to start doing any kind of software, I'd say go download Eclipse, go download the Java compiler, and just go start playing with Java. Go on Sun Microsystems website and look at the API and say, okay, I want to draw a box on the screen, and then look up how to draw a box, and then just go from there. You know, and the sky's the limit. So. Okay.
Repeat that, Tom?
I can barely hear you, so. Go ahead. Academy? Code Academy, okay.
And then the last one is, are there any suggested, I know I'm making this very broad, but any suggested shadowing opportunities for anybody that's interested in either programming or something like that you would suggest, or do you have some at your company?
I guess for me, no. I mean, we don't really have, we have college students that come, you know, and work with us as co-ops, but we don't have like a high school shadowing program or anything. I guess I will say one thing though, and I haven't done a lot of research or anything on this, but I think there's a makerspace in Canton somewhere, and I think there's a makerspace, I'm pretty confident there's a makerspace in Akron somewhere. And if that's something you guys are interested in, I would touch base with those guys. Those guys, typically what it is it's a glorified garage with a bunch of equipment in it. Usually a lot of guys that like to write code, you know, and women too as well. But code, hardware, software, whatever, you know, it's just, that's kind of what they do, so they love it. But make sure you get your permission for your parents first. Yep.
Tom, I think the closest thing that I've got to design computer is when you go on the Dell web page, there's three things that they can choose. Microprocessor, DRAM, and hard drive.
Sure.
If most of us are doing word processing, Excel, say we're doing Microsoft Office, which one of those is most important, how they relate to each other? I know the hard drive just saves memory, but
Oh gosh, okay.
what would you recommend for, like, say, in a college environment, when you buy your computer? Talk about that.
Gosh, all right. Well, I will say, again, kind of, that's not really computer engineering's focus. I happen to be a nerd, so like I like that stuff, but I know plenty of guys that are computer engineers that are not even interested in that. They're like, does it have a keyboard? Does it work? Okay. So I guess as far as what you're kind of asking, if you're talking like longevity of machine, like over the years, I guess I'd look at something that probably has good reviews, honestly, because the thing's probably liable to break sooner than it is like from a microprocessor or DRAM to fail. And pretty much like if you're YouTubing or emailing or word processing or whatever, like the stuff that's out there now is so dang powerful that I guess the only advice I would give you is a mechanical hard drive over a solid state disk is a poor choice. Choose a solid state disk. So that's probably all. Any other questions? I'm happy to answer them. Okay.
Giving up your Sunday, being with us, I appreciate that. You have some wonderful companies locally in Stockton, Summit County for computer engineering, in addition to Tom's company. But how about Timken? You saw the entire last section was with the Timken organization. We showed a video last year that there was a young man who was presenting in his class and asked him what a timpani is. And in his hand, he opened up a ball bearing. Do you remember that? And that ball bearing turned into a tank, a helicopter, and industrial machinery and everything else. So computer engineering is very critical to them. How about Debo? You heard Tom talk about the ATM machine over there. That's what they do. How about Goodyear? Making tires, race car tires. I toured their plant, and they are the premier world manufacturer of Formula race car tires. So many opportunities. Also, when you think about the links here, let's say you like the medical industry. Let's say you're good at math. Let's say engineering is of interest to you, and you want to work in the medical field. You can do computer engineering in the medical field tomorrow. So think about it that way. You know, there's a lot of different links. It's the same, like I said, with marketing. It's the same, like I said, with some of these other career paths. If you have a passion, you want to help people in the medical field, you can do a lot of these career paths in that too. There's a lot of you that have medical now in your career path, so think about it. Okay, with that, Tabitha, I'd like to introduce our next speaker. Thank you.
Okay, I have to use the mic. My voice doesn't travel that far. But I wanted to tell Tom Gresson, thank you again for being here, and thank you to all of our camp students that did show today. I know it's a beautiful day outside, and everybody's eager to get out there, but this is a good opportunity for you to hear this information as presented to you, and thank you for being here again. Here we go for our next second part of our session. I'd like to introduce our next speaker, who's going to speak on IT. She is an alumnus of Stark State as well as the University, Walsh University, and she is currently with Stark State, where she started as a part-time instructor in the late 90s, and as of 2011, she became a full-time instructor for computer science and information systems. So now, if you please give a warm welcome to Miss Kathy Eisen.
Thank you. It's a real pleasure to be here to talk with you a little bit about my background and my career path. And some of you are probably going to go through that same career path or something similar. And to reiterate what the other people have already said about, you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Okay? I started my career, I always say I started my career as a credit union, but prior to that I did in high school, I worked in fast food, okay, I worked in a church rectory, some things that you're probably going to be doing or doing already, but my first, in retail, I've got to put that in there, I worked in a retail, and this is all before computers. It takes me back to the before computer days. Credit union-wise, I started out as a teller. Worked as a teller, and at that time I was planning to get married, so it was like really all I wanted to do was get married and have children. That was my goal. Okay, I didn't get to go to. I didn't have plans. We had 8 kids in the family. All that said, and college really wasn't on the radar, so to speak. So I went to. Credit union, got a job there as a teller, but you know what? I would get promoted. Became a loan officer, and my 10 years there, I became an operations manager. And in those 10 years, obviously we didn't start off with the computers. We had dummy computers. They didn't really listen to the input we had to share. But in that 10 years, we did see computers becoming a little bit more we did a lot of ledger cards, columnar pads. We did a lot of manual balancing every night. And if we were off a penny, do you know how many hours we would spend balancing to the penny? End of the month procedures, balancing, closing the quarters and all that. That was done on manually. We did all that and would spend days looking to make sure everything balanced. Okay. Then computers came along and made life a little bit easier. Then at that time, Lotus was the industry standard. And it was DOS based, not Windows based, so you had a little bit more typing to do as far as telling the computer what you want to do. So when the opportunity came in 10 years that I was offered a position to be a practice administrator for a medical practice. And primarily the reason I was one of the top candidates was because of this time, we're talking the 90s, and I did since go back to college. I went to Stark State first, finished my degree, and then in 1990, with the medical practice, because of my background in computers, the practice was starting to go into the computer technology as well. That's why I was hired there. And of course I had to, my primary job there was to medical records, help the staff get accustomed, get acclimated to the computers. This is going to be all foreign to them. Remember, a lot of times everything was just basically ledgers and calculators and not computer data entry like we have it today, like you know it today. So I spent 10 years there in the medical office and became familiar with medical records. And did I have a medical background? Absolutely not. You know, I can't stand the sight of blood, so I wasn't going to be a nurse. That was not going to happen. But because of a computer background, I was able to get into a medical field. And the gentleman just said that. You may, if you like medicine, or there's opportunities in IT no matter which field you may want to get into. So 10 years later, after I earned my degree at Walsh University, now mind you, when I initially went back to school, I loved to teach. I was a Sunday school teacher for years, even when I was a sophomore in high school. I did that for, back in that time. I really went back to school to become a theology teacher and teach back at my alma mater, St. Thomas Aquinas. Went to Walsh University after Stark State, and at the time, the brother was there when he was looking over my transcripts, and when he found out what I wanted to do, he goes, absolutely not. He said, you have all this accounting, all this business background, all this computer background, you need to work on this degree, okay? And fortunately that was the right path. It may not have been what I wanted to do, but it was the path that was laid out. And it's been a rewarding path. I've been able to help people obtain a comfort zone with computers in the credit union, the medical field. And then 10 years later, I was looking to maybe explore horizons, and a software development team was looking for somebody, and it was up in Stowe, Hudson area, north of Akron. And you know, I'm 50 years old, and I'm thinking, you know, they're not going to hire me. Sat on an interview. I was listening to the interview, you being on an interview there, and this interview, I was at interview panel. Guess who all the members of that interview panel were? Men. Okay? I'm a 50-year-old woman sitting in front of all these men. When I left that interview, I'm thinking, they're not going to hire me. You know, I'm not young, like real young, and obviously I had a lot on my agenda that I could contribute to the software development team. I love technology. I'm a gadget gal. I have watched, it grow and grow and grow. And actually on the way home, driving down here to Canton, I get the call. I was hired. When can I start? So, you never know. Fortunately, at that time, it was wonderful being on that software development team, working with a Java guru, and helping other people learn basically the software that we were developing was used in medical field, medical records package. And you know how that has boomed, and it's going to always boom. And one thing about IT, it's not going to ever end. It's only going to grow. And I really encourage all of you to get your hands in it no matter what you can. Now, I hated, about, 2011, when I became full-time at Stark State, I did receive a call from the department chair, Dr. Larry Ray, who was really supposed to be here today, but I stepped in for him. He called and said, would you want to work here full-time? And I loved my job on that software development team. I loved it. But what it all came down to? I've always loved my students more. And I've always had still the teaching, that's my passion, is to help people and to help teach people skills and overcome their fears to something new and different. It was a great opportunity. Hated to leave there. Made lots of friends all along the way. And that's one thing that you can always look back. You've always maybe you've even made differences in some people's lives, you've helped others, you've learned, you've grown, and what more can you ask for a career than that? Right now, I'm at Stark State, full-time, absolutely love it. I get an opportunity to create new programs, develop new courses. What I'm going to share today are some of my students' work. And I like to think of what I do there is I plant a seed. We have lots of different tools in an IT world. No different than a toolbox. I grew up along my dad, watching him work with, pull a tool out of a toolbox. What do you do with that tool? He'd show me. You master a tool. I like to think that the same way as the computer. There are so many tools inside of a computer that you can master. You can develop your skills and do something with that. And then when you are ready to go out for an interview, you have a portfolio piece. Granted, you may not have worked somewhere and developed that, but you aren't afraid to work with that tool and become so proficient that you're going to be able to share that knowledge with others, maybe a team, and become that team leader. Okay? Something else was said about interviewing. No matter what college you choose to go to, I would strongly, and I say this, my students get tired of me. Oh, Miss Kathy, you tell us that every semester. Yes, I do. When you are getting ready to interview, every college has a career development, some career development area, department. They hold mock interviews. You know what a mock interview is? Hopefully, you'll get an opportunity to do that here, even at this level. It's where you go and you actually sit down with someone and you simulate a real-life interview. So you aren't, blindsided with a question that somebody might have you. They show you, they help you develop good planning skills, good questions for you to ask a future or prospective employer. Okay? Always seek out help. It doesn't show that you are weak in any area. It's only going to show that you have the initiative and the foresight that you want to do that. You want to succeed on that interview. You want to nail it. Because like you just heard earlier, there's hundreds of people for that same job. You've got to set yourself apart. Wow, when you leave that interview, you're going to say, we want that person. We want them here now. They're going to contribute very well to the team. So, what I kind of do in my classes is very balanced, very laid back. We show different tools. Right now, you're going to see some things, web development. A lot of this is web development tools, Microsoft Expression. We don't even teach that anymore. And at the time, it was kind of going out of the area anyway. It's not really a industry standard. But no matter what, it's a learning tool. If you can learn one application, just like, remember I said Lotus back in the day, that was the industry standard? Well, guess what happened when Excel came along? Do you think it took me years to be proficient in Excel then? No, because they very much acted the same way. WordPerfect, another tool was WordPerfect. Back in the day, that was the industry standard. Well, guess what the industry standard is today? Anyone? What do we work on now as you're writing documents, typing papers, make research? Microsoft Word, industry standard today. Was it an easy transition to go from one to the other? Pretty much, because you know what? I mastered the one program. That's why I said, if you can learn one program, anyone, if you go to any company and they have something different, and pretty much they operate all the same. So you're going to see a lot of different web development tools that my students were able to master. JavaScript, the gentleman, the speaker before me mentioned Java, JavaScript. If you like, in a Code Academy, awesome website to go to if you really like coding. But JavaScript, you'll see some examples of the JavaScript class. Wonderful application. Wonderful tool to help build your coding skills. So as we go through there, I'm kind of Flash. Another one is Flash. Flash isn't used so much in the industry's web development phase anymore, but Flash is going to be around. What I like about Flash is it teaches you animation, and there are a lot of Flash games. I also teach the video game class at Stark State. I like video games. I don't play them like my students play them. But again, it's design, it's the game design. I wish I had some of the game designs that we've recently put together. But that's another class that it pretty much teaches design and working in teams. But it didn't have to be video game. It could be any kind of, because you're going to learn the concepts of being a good team player, getting a job done. Those are the skill sets that going to college, going to school, they help build. Because you know what, if you can't play well with others, that's another characteristic that a lot of companies want. They want to make sure that you're able to play well with others and do your part to get the project going. Okay? So as we go through here, please don't hesitate. Stop me, ask a question. I want to treat this as if you're in my class, and if you think of something, raise your hand. But a lot of these just screenshots of some of my students' work. Again, this was an Expression Web. And this is one of our stars building a website using this tool. Now, this is all hand-coded. This is not using something like WordPress. WordPress is a, what you see, what you get, WYSIWYG program. This is actual code. They're building that from straight HTML, back then HTML5. Now we're using HTML5, CSS3. Okay, this is straight code. Very nicely done. One of our shining stars. We have so many. We're very fortunate. Another, we always have the Apple Windows debate. Granted, for me, I've worked in both systems and I like them equally well. I am a Mac laptop. I've worked in Windows most of my career, and so you can't. You'll never hear anything negative about either one from me. But there's always still those people, and some of you in here probably, oh, I don't want a Mac, you know, you downgrade that, and some people don't like Windows, so I hear it all the time. JavaScript. Now this gentleman here, he's went on to work on his bachelor's. I'd love to see him come back to Stark State and teach someday. But he was one of my, actually I've encouraged him to be one of our tutors at the college. And what he did with his knowledge in the class, and again, mind you, when you're in Stark State, my goal is to have you do assignments so that you have a portfolio piece, so that you can take that into your interview. Different than, you know, maybe just taking tests, memorizing words and regurgitating. I don't believe in that kind of education. You show me what you know. And this is what he did. He put a tutorial similar to what you would find, somebody asked what kind of websites you could go to. You could go to James' website and learn anything you want about JavaScript. He was that good. And he built, and obviously this even got better. He improved his website so much by the time he graduated. And he's doing quite well, working independently and then actually working on his bachelor's degree. And again, this is all code, and this is from the JavaScript class. Another one, I kind of blocked out the name just to keep it anonymous. Again, we're not doing any WYSIWYG. This is all straight code and working with the design through CSS, web development. Organic, this another one. She's actually, one of my students here was a dog, works in an animal clinic and breeds dogs, and is just, so she did this for her business. Did put that together. And she was also very talented with her design, drawing and working in Adobe Photoshop, so she put a lot of those own graphics together. We do contests every now and again, and sometimes the way to get students, we have to do another web page. Well, a lot of times I throw a contest in there, and basically I give them a topic, and who doesn't like to talk about their childhood characters, cartoon characters, or a lot of times I'll do games, video games, whatever. So it gives, then what happens with that kind of a topic, then people are more apt to do a nicer job, and of course they want to compete, so they want to win the prize. And the prizes are always fun. So, and I think at this class, if I remember right, this more or less was Dreamweaver, Adobe Dreamweaver. And we taught Adobe Dreamweaver, and even though you can use Adobe Dreamweaver and just basically not code, you can build a website without knowing any code, our students choose to code. When you get into the computer science and IT area, we're there to code. Why do you think that is? Well, when you code, when you basically know how to code and structure, your page will render better than if you don't, okay? Plus it helps build those troubleshooting skills, okay? These are her favorite. This was one of, I think the same gal that did the dog breeding. And again, Dreamweaver. Various websites from using that tool. And again, remember I just said, we're here to help you learn the various tools, know that they're out there, become proficient, and produce something that's beautiful. Something that you can show, and it's not from a book. It's not, oh, I can just follow this book or this tutorial. Yes, you have to follow that, but it has to be then use those skills to build something that you want to share. Okay, yeah, this is about our favorite movies, childhood movies, some, games and whatever. So as you can see, a lot of good work that comes through the college. Here's some JavaScript. Now JavaScript, we get into a little bit more problem solving. You're going to get exposed to math. You have to solve puzzles. Some of the comments that the gentleman before me was talking about, the functions and, if-then structures, you'll learn that in JavaScript. It's a little bit more elevated than just plain old HTML and CSS. Now you're going to add some interaction to the web page. Okay? This class is always fun. At this point, you learn how to build an application that allows your visitor of your web page to do something to that website. Change the background color. They don't like the initial background color, so you give them some choices. So that's what JavaScript is all about. It's a way to add the interaction of the web page. How to convert the temperature, Fahrenheit, Celsius, and so forth. As you can see, these look like assignments that they dread doing. No, they always seem to enjoy putting their own spin on this problem that they're given. Numbers, there's 20 integers and their values. This was a new grandma showing off her grandbaby. This is a picture, but actually, I should have made a video of it, but it's fish swimming undersea. So that's another thing that we do with our JavaScript, making the objects on the screen move. Shopping carts. Shopping carts are a way, obviously we learned how to do that and add up all the items that you want to buy. And we play little games, actually entering some values, typing in something and doing something with that information. All the ins and outs of how the web and the internet really works in delivering the pages that you view at this point. Another changing the background color. Photoshop. The reason why we work with Photoshop in our department, and actually in the fall, we're going to work with GIMP. How many of you have ever heard of GIMP? Ever heard of that tool? I'd love to see some hands. Why do you think we're moving from Photoshop to GIMP? Anyone want to guess? How about it's free? Does that sound like a good reason to use it? Photoshop becomes quite a costly factor for schools here, I'm sure, and as well as Start Safe. Not to mention, when I was on the software development team, my company, they didn't have Photoshop. What we used GIMP. If there's software out there, a lot of companies will do that. If there's something that you can download for free, use it. Okay? In fact, a lot of times we were using Google Docs. We did open. It was an open, with all the different Word, and they worked just like Word and PowerPoint and all that, but it was free. But Photoshop has been what we've used, and the reason why we still have to use that in the web graphics world is because, a client may want you to design something, their logo, they may want you to design that. They don't want you to go out on Google and search an image and do it, put one there. So we basically do work in Photoshop / now GIMP, we're going to be working with, to develop logos, graphics, that you put those onto your website. Because generally, this isn't just a Photoshop class, it's a web graphics class. So you start with the skills of an image editing program, but then by the end of the semester, you're taking that image and you're basically creating a mock-up to a website. Okay. But there's a lot of neat techniques in Photoshop and in GIMP that you get exposed to. Working with different fonts, creating fonts from your own, framing art pieces and so forth. Taking photos of your family or objects that you have and enhancing those photos. This probably is, yeah, these are still some Photoshop. You know, and it's hard for you to visualize really, I should show before and after pictures, you know, what they're given, what the students are given with an image and what they're able to produce. This is like, you know, nothing the book really wanted. They didn't have a book picture to go on. This is imagination. This is a student's imagination, how to put those pieces together to produce something. And that's something too that you may want to be aware of when you are going out for that interview on a particular job. You may be asked, you know, you may be given a problem, or you may be given something to design, and they're going to want you they want you to see, they want to see what you can do with that. So it doesn't hurt to practice, you know. We're looking for school to end. I don't. I teach all summer. I just never, I'm a workaholic. I will always teach. I'm sure some of you are probably can't wait for school to end. But you know what I say to that is still practice some of your technology skills. Don't let that dry up, you know. I hear it every semester. I'll have students from right now in my spring semester, they're learning HTML5. They have to take JavaScript in the fall. So you know what, guys? You better be practicing some of these assignments that I've given you, because you know JavaScript we start running. I'm not going to sit there and wait for you to learn all that HTML5 again. Okay, you better know that, and I encourage you to do that. You know, instead of playing games, watching TV all night long, you know, get out a tutorial, work on it. Work over it again so you really know what's going on. Play with GIMP, download it, it's free. You don't have Adobe Photoshop, so what? You can get the free versions. Another, you know, these are designs of a day spa that somebody put together. And again, it's all their own work. They may grab a few items from the internet, but basically some of the background tools are all theirs. Again, this is more, this is actually not code, this is a mock-up created in Photoshop. Making all the squares and adding text so they have a visual, so they can give that to the client. This is what I would think your website could look like and do well, based on a food industry's website. Did a really nice job with that. The background, you can't really tell there. Beautiful colors used, wonderful fonts. It just blended really well. Taking an image, doing something, again, I should show the before and afters, but these are really wonderful. Here's a brand new logo somebody designed out of Photoshop, working with the different tool sets inside there. Now the truck, I'm sure, captured that from Google Images, which is fine, but he still had to do some work to modify that to fit into the logo. Another logo. Another logo. This one was actually, he has his business. This is what he does on the side. He bakes doggy snacks. And that became he took the class, and then that became his logo for his business card, his stationery and everything. So it was a really nice result. And again, just some more fun logos. We did this, the beginning of this picture, I give this picture to the students, and there's not the sofa there, and there's that picture there, and behind the sofa, there's nothing in that picture frame. And the students actually learn the skills to drop that picture in there and actually arrange it so that it looks like how it should, as far as the angle and everything. That's why I always show this one, because this is a really neat, was a new tool in Adobe CS6 that allowed that picture to look like that in this photo. More logos. Lots of fun things we do in all the different classes, and I have more. I mean, I have even more over this. I think this is a couple years old, and I keep them on my. I keep them in my computer, and I just need to update this even more, especially now too with my video game people. Illustrators, vector art, where they're actually learning using paint lines. They're just using lines, no images, all line art. Beautiful work. We do not teach Illustrator anymore. We dropped that. This is a logo based on, created in Illustrator, working with just the pen tool or a pencil tool, drawing that, or even tracing it. Pretty cool tutorials. This is a pretty neat design from one of my advanced web class designs. Amazing, like I said. Those images, those children are just placed in there. To see this, what I gave them has shrubs all over. It has the crime scene tape going across the picture. And the students learn how to take all that away and make the picture something. And they can add whatever they want and put those kids in there. It looks like they belong there. And making the game design. These are the characters they have to create in Photoshop. But see, now game design, we build a board game and a video game. And I don't have screenshots of the board games. We've had some wonderful board games created. Well, here's one. This is just one. But I have even so many more since then. So, at this point, I'd certainly love to hear any questions that you may have, or on anything from Stark State, or even my journey up to this point. I know you probably are anxious to get out there and enjoy the rest of the day. Go ahead. The design, the typical courses for, you're going to have HTML, we call it Internet Design. Internet Design is a course where you're going to really heavily soak yourself into HTML, HTML5 now, CSS, Cascading Style Sheets, for those of you that didn't know what that stood for. The HTML is the basic structure of the web page. The CSS is the makeup, makes it look pretty. And we are working in CSS3 as well as that. So you have your web design, your internet design. You're going to have JavaScript if you're in a web design degree. You're going, along with those other courses like math, you're still going to have math and English, you know, your general studies. You're still going to have to take some of those courses unless there's some kind of agreement that if you've taken college courses while you're here now, you know, of course you won't have to take them again. Let's see, what else? JavaScript, advanced web design, where we learn jQuery a little more. We go in heavily with jQuery. PHP, working with the database side. Internet tools, where you get more of a conglomerate. You get Flash, you expose yourself to Dreamweaver, although that will be going away. But there's other tools that we integrate into the courses so that you have a broad knowledge of web development skills when you leave Stark State. Any other questions with that? How many of you think you would like to be in web design? No? Yeah? If you really want to be there, I really strongly encourage you to, you know, work with it, make it be your pastime and your extra credit time, extra time that you need to work on. And download programs like GIMP, all the free ones. Take advantage of all the free software that's available to you. Notepad++. Our students code a lot in Notepad++. If you aren't coding in that, I would strongly encourage you to get mastered in that. We used it at the software development team where I came from. Yes, Mr. Byrne.
I don't know that much about it, but doing information technology.
What's that?
Information technology out in industry. Do I need to know more about creating the program or working and doing the program if I go out to a business and I'm in their information technology?
If you're, it depends on, but I'm a firm believer, and we have advisory team meetings a lot. Our people, the people that are hiring, like Timken, Diebold, so forth, they want you to know how to use that software. You know,
so it's important.
It's important.
To know the newest, latest, or
no newest, latest, or
what's the most popular one?
Most popular, yes, like Word. You know, learn Word inside out. Learn Excel inside out. Work with that. Work with your assignments. People are looking for that. And another area that the Timken company strongly encourages, and I've incorporated that into many of my classes, is SAP. You know, the college people they're graduating, but they've not been able to touch, unless they're working somewhere, they're not able to, it's foreign. SAP is a foreign. And basically what I tell people, so I'm not going to go into the detail on that, it's like working with Excel on steroids. Okay? It lays over the whole database and lets people access data, and that's what they want. And so we encourage, and I have a lot of exercises for the SAP program. Crystal reports, another data mining. Data, if you like Access and you're a numbers person, you like accounting. My gosh, that's where I was. That's where my foundation is. I ended up learning a lot of basics. Somebody said Fortran, that takes you back too, but I did basic. I learned that back then it was just basic. And you just learn and I don't mean to sound redundant, but it's just basic programming concepts, logic, and that was, then came into Visual Basic, which was the background of Access a lot. So you built little macros and you built little efficiency tools so that you did work better. You know, you got to work smarter, not harder, smarter. Okay, so yes.
So if you come out of here,
Yeah.
knowing how to do Word,
Excel.
PowerPoint, Excel definitely.
Excel definitely.
And Access.
And Access.
Would that really help you out as far as looking into information technology?
Almost
And
definitely.
businesses use that a lot for,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
how would they use those skills to help them with, I don't know, either talking about their bottom line or getting information about statistics that they have? How do they use that?
How do they use the Excel?
Like, there's another, I don't know how to ask it. There's another program that they use, but this is a backdrop to it, so it's important to know that skill so that you're.
Yeah, so you know how to make a formula, so that you're not, you're gonna know when you're working in spreadsheets and working with statistics, working with numbers, that you'll know the importance of organizing that data so that it's easily retrieved. Somebody, when you're capturing data, why are we doing that? What do companies make you do that for? There's a reason. They've got to make decisions off that data. So, attention to detail. Working with that Excel helps you build those skill sets. Attention to detail, working with numbers, working with formulas, and access database, understanding the relationship, how that data all works together. Okay. I would strongly encourage you to continue working and getting stronger in your IT skill. and your communication skills, knowing how to speak efficiently, working with others, communicating your ideas, and working as a team. So, anything?
Microsoft Office, Word, and Excel are almost must-have entry
Almost.
level to any job you go for. It doesn't matter what it is. I'll even tell you, go for a nursing job, you need those skills on the computer. And the way companies use it is, here's the problem, now we'll solve it. You need to solve it with data, but you need to report it out in one of those systems that they have in the company. So,
And I believe this group knows how important that is. That's why we have it at the 9th grade
Yeah.
level, but you got to practice it beyond
Right.
just being introduced to it in 9th grade. You should be practicing Excel, especially if you're going in for any field, with mathematics, engineering, anything like that, 9th grade, 10th grade level. You should be using that in partnership with the math course that you're sitting in, honestly. Any formula that
Absolutely.
you have in math, you can duplicate, create, and make work in Excel.
Yeah, absolutely.
Must.
Great. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much. And sharing your Sunday. Appreciate it. A couple of key points that Gavin made was SAP. I have a young man who's actually my godchild, and he works for Cardinal Health in Columbus. And they just redid their entire computer system in Cardinal Health in SAP. It cost them tens of millions of dollars, brought in an outside consulting agency, and changed their entire system for Cardinal Health, which is probably one of the top two health insurance systems in the world. Huge undertaking, and he was running one section of it, but very cool. The company, like I came from Kraft Foods, we had 1,000 people in our tech department because we maintained our own systems. So they weren't outside systems. We created them. We brought in computer engineers, we brought everybody out in and designed it ourselves, proprietary system. That has its own advantages. It also has its own drawbacks. You have to employ a lot of people to keep it up. You do have confidentiality, so I can go on and on with pluses and minuses, but it's exciting, like you said. The boom in I think in IT and where it's going is in medical record keeping is huge. It's just in its infancy. I would venture to say, you all go to the doctor. I would imagine one or two offices that you all would go to. That's all. A small percentage are doing the conversion. Everybody else still has the old files. I mean, you see them. The administrators open up the walls, and there's files and files and files and files and files. On the next 10 to 20 years, that's a booming business, is automating those files. So there's a big issue there because confidentiality is obviously a major issue. And when you don't want anybody to access your personal information, you know if you go in this cloud, anything can happen. A good hacker can get in there, and so it's got some issues, but they're working on it. That's a huge opportunity. The other thing that was key, and Mr. Jim Sage said, women in technology, huge opportunity. If you're a talented female in looking for technology and engineering, as a matter of fact, the sky is the limit. You have an automatic advantage graduating college, believe me. If you walk into a job interview in either one of those professions as a female, they are dying to have female representation. And one of the reasons is corporations are already making the move towards executives as female. Who would you want talking to them? Who would you prefer? You talking to a female executive. Many times it's a female. So, talking to a female, so just keep that in mind as you're looking. And then the last thing I had was, which I thought was interesting, was the veterinary clinic. Who's our veterinary students here? 1, 2, right? I think there's another, 3, 4. There's about 4 veterinary students, but this is something if you like to work with veterinary and you're good with technology and math, do it anyway. Do it anywhere. Follow your passion. Parallel paths, so to speak. So you got jobs, you got, applications anywhere, so it's pretty cool. And Mr. Bruno, I forgot, when Tom was speaking, you talked about shadowing. I am pretty sure we had 5 engineer for a day shadows at Tiffany, right, Rich? And they were not in computer engineering, they were more in, what were they? Math. Do you remember? Kayla? It was mechanical. Jack was there. We had 5 students that shadowed at Tiffany for a day. Very cool. I am sure if you're interested in computer engineering that we could make that happen. So at one of these companies, Goodyear, Timken. So we can do that. Okay, so was there a prom last night or the night before? Or was there a prom? Or they didn't have a lot of proms. Did we have? When is Timken in next week? This weekend coming. Oh, okay. I thought it was. For some reason I thought it was last night or Friday. Okay, a couple of announcements, and then I'll see if Mr. Bruno and Mrs. Bruno have anything to say. Our June seminar, which is June 7th. Okay, that seminar will be for seniors only. So we haven't done this before. This will be graduating seniors. Okay, so basically what you do is you have a month off if you're not a graduating senior. But if you are a graduating senior, it's mandatory. You must be there. We will be talking about rules and roles and responsibilities as you go off to college to stay in good standing in the CAMP program, what needs to be done. It's important that you know it. And also, there's a pretty special surprise that Mr. LaRocca has helped initiate that you don't want to miss. So, again, June 7th, we were going to try to do a seminar, but every time we try to do that, we get ourselves in trouble and the breakouts don't work. And so I think it's just cleaner that we have this session for the seniors. We're going to see how this goes. And, I mean, we know what we want to do with the seniors, but we got a month off for the summer there. We will have a meeting, everybody in July 19th.
You might want to write that down. Everybody will be writing that.
Write that down, yes. July 19th. We'll be looking forward to a lot of our alumni coming back to talk to you specifically about college life. So you will see people like Hannah Montgomery, Jay Dubinsky, maybe Katie Fonda. They will talk to you about their experience over the last year or 2 in college. Okay. In addition, they will talk to you about apprenticeships and jobs and what they've been doing on that front since they graduated. So, very cool session. Could have 5 to 6 of your fellow alumni come back. August meeting will be August 16th. Please write that one down too. And the details on that will come later. Okay, let's see. I don't have anything else. Mr. Bruno, Mrs. Bruno. Oh, speakers? Anything else come to mind? No. For our speakers, one of the hard spots that we're finding in the industry is of our program is credentials. And it is very young age to be, figure out something and then stick to it. So we are very much into exposing as many career paths as we can. The last session was 50, and they spoke on human resources, marketing, and finance. So we did not talk about, engineering. So that'll tell you what we're trying to do. We've had medical, we've had legal, lawyers, fuel cell energy. We're also trying to pick those career paths that we think have some legs in the near-term future and jobs. And it's not a, one-shot. And I say one-shot is next, and it's over. Something that they can have long-term longevity in careers. And so we've asked them to choose option 1, 2, and 3, and we try to work with them. But again, it's very early game of life. But it's important. It's important they know what opportunities